Can I beat the American Civil War scenario on the hardest difficulty level in the game? Well, that's exactly what I'm going to try and do in this video. My name is Deity, and I have a dream of having 100% of the achievements in Civ 5. And I'm actually pretty close to getting them all, so I've set myself the goal of getting all the achievements by the end of the year. I've already done most of the achievements you can get in the normal game, so the majority of the ones I have left are related to the scenarios, many of which require me to beat these scenarios on Deity, a difficulty which apparently only the best players in the world can beat. Yeah, okay, it can't be that hard, game. The American Civil War scenario has an achievement for beating it on Deity, and earning that achievement is my goal for this video. So, can I get it? Let's find out. Now, I'm going to explain how the scenario works for those who don't know, but feel free to skip this section if you just want to jump straight into things. The scenario is a 1v1 between the Union and the Confederates, where the goal is to capture your opponent's capital city. So basically it's just a domination victory. However, you only have a turn limit of 50, and if you haven't captured your opponent's capital in that time, you lose. The scenario comes with a unique technology tree, unique units, and a few unique mechanics. Units can only be produced in cities which have certain pre-constructed buildings in them. So, for example, my capital can train infantry, cannons, and naval units, but it doesn't have the facilities to make cavalry. Some cities can't train any units and can only be set to convert production into gold. Cities also don't have ranged strikes in this scenario. All military units also require strategic resources to be trained. Horses for cavalry, iron for cannons and ships, and the unique manpower resource for infantry units. Each civ has a single great general given to them at the start of the game. However, they are stronger than normal, as their combat bonus is given in a range of 5 tiles instead of the normal 2. And if captured, these generals just get sent back to the nearest friendly city rather than being destroyed. Culture, religion, and happiness have all been disabled as well, so I just need to worry about combat. Let's get started with the actual game now. I decided to play as the Union under the leadership of President Abraham Lincoln, who's probably most famous for being killed by a booth. The Union have the unique ability to embark their units, which is helpful, I suppose? Yeah, I guess the Confederates couldn't figure out how boats work or something, but they can't embark in this scenario. The Confederate capital is Richmond, located in the south of the map. So my long-term plan was to simply send my army southwards and capture any cities along the way. But first I wanted to capture the cities near my capital, starting with Fairfax and Leesburg. I started the game with a couple frigates and had a couple more under construction, so I planned to send them south to assist with the attack on Richmond once I was ready for that. I also had these 2 random infantry units really far away from the action, so I just sent them towards the city nearest to them to hopefully draw away some enemy forces from the front lines. Fairfax fell surprisingly quickly, as did Leesburg, and it's at this point that I think I should probably mention another mechanic in this scenario. You may notice all these names popping up where infantry units are, and that's because infantry in this scenario earn a unique promotion after their first combat. These promotions are named after leaders from the actual Civil War, and you can learn a little about them from reading the promotion description, which is cool. Some of these promotions are really good, and some are pretty bad. Most of them though seem to be just really niche, like plus 50% combat strength when defending in a marsh. Okay, sure, that sounds really helpful. But seriously, it's a cool mechanic and one I really appreciate them adding. Few turns into the scenario, I get this pop-up, which is an event that aids the Confederates. This one's specifically boosting their great general to be even stronger. There'll be a few more of these events later as well. At this point I divert a few units south, along with my great general, with the aim of capturing Fredericksburg, whilst sending the majority of my army to attack Manassas. And it's already been captured. A pop-up telling me about Confederate blockade runners reminds me that gold exists, so I decided to purchase a couple extra infantry units with my gold supplies. And speaking of infantry, at this point I'm only one turn away from researching my first technology, which will allow me to upgrade my infantry divisions into infantry corps, which are much stronger but require 3 manpower resources rather than 1. So I'll have to be careful to balance how many I have so I don't have too few units. So far the Confederates have been a real pushover and haven't done much to hold my armies. Oh wait, what's this? A Confederate army near Harper's Ferry? Well, I can just send some units to go defend it and... oh, never mind. They took it.
Why do they call them civil wars, when they always are so extraordinarily uncivil?
I don't know, Elizabeth. Why do they call them civil wars? I decided to start researching rifled artillery, which will allow me to upgrade my cannons to be stronger and have extra range. And now that I can get infantry corps, I take a look at the promotions my infantry units have to find the best ones to upgrade. I decided to upgrade this Henry Slocum dude since he gives a plus 30% bonus to attacking cities, which seems really helpful. I also upgrade Emery Upton since most of the map is open terrain, so a combat bonus there seems useful too. And at the moment, that's all the corps I can afford to upgrade. After taking Warrenton, I start sending my troops north to where the Confederates seem to be sending most of their forces, and where they have just captured another city. It's also now that they send troops to defend their cities, as a lone infantry scouting near Culpeper gets attacked. And it's here that I lose my first unit, as this infantry division bravely led by Joshua Chamberlain succumbs to multiple enemy attacks. And this sort of marks the point where the scenario starts to become more interesting. Now the early game advantage is worn off and the Confederates have actually started deploying units to fight me. And if I'm not careful, they're poised to take many of my northern cities. That said, however, I'm still dominating the Confederates. I capture the city of Fredericksburg, meaning I'm closing in on Richmond. I also start attacking Williamsburg with the 2 infantry I have there, since they don't really have anything better to do. Alrighty, now to kill this cavalry unit. Oh, or I guess they can just run away. Didn't realize they could do that. Another city falls, a cavalry unit dies, and the Confederates get a great scientist to boost their research. However, my infantry corps are definitely helping me out. Just look at how much damage they do to these guys. The fighting is getting more bloody now, and the enemy seems to have even more units in reserve, ready to fill in for their fallen comrades. I finish another technology and start researching field hospitals, which will double the healing rate of my soldiers, saving me valuable turns in my war. And with rifled cannons now unlocked, I can upgrade my cannons, right? Well, I come to the unfortunate realization that my existing cannons cannot be upgraded into rifled cannons, meaning if I want any, I need to build or purchase new ones. And right now I don't have any spare iron, which is fine. I didn't need them that badly, I guess. Oh hey, Williamsburg was captured. Neat. And Culpeper follows soon after. At this point, my southern army, which is predominantly made up of cannons, has reached the city of Ashland, the last city standing between that army and the Confederate capital. But it appears the Confederates have themselves also developed the technology for rifle cannons, and unlike me, they've actually built some. Robert Patterson? Damn, so close to having Batman. They bombard my troops with cannon fire, taking a couple out, but I retaliate with my infantry corps, which one-shot their basic cannons. Then I get my revenge by bombarding their own units. Bro, what? This Robert Patterson guy gets -1 movement? That's terrible. He's so slow. At this point, I seem to have beaten back most of the Confederates near Culpeper, so I decided to send my infantry corps towards Ashland, as they'll be crucial if I want to capture Richmond and win this scenario. But I make sure to leave a few units behind to defend Culpeper, even if it's not the most important city. I recapture Chambersburg, but since the Confederates just took Leesburg, I guess we're even.
Why do all these city names end in Berg?
Another event pops up, giving the Confederates a ton of gold. Once again, this reminds me that gold exists, and so after I capture the city of Ashland, I upgrade another of my infantry divisions into an infantry corps. At this point, the Confederates are sending units to the city of Frederick, not to be confused with Fredericksburg, which is a completely different city. This is bad because if they take that city, they can just march straight down to Washington, which I cannot afford to lose. I also spot a Confederate infantry corps, which doesn't bode well. But I have an army to the north of Richmond now, as well as some reinforcements coming from the east, and my frigates are here too. I can't wait to use them to bombard the enemy from the sea. Oh, well, that's okay, I still have 2 more frigates. Geez, my troops are dying left and right now. This is turning into a very bloody, uncivil war. The frigate doesn't do much damage, it seems. Well, that's okay. Every little bit helps, especially when that's the expected damage my basic infantry will take if it attacks the city. Yikes.
Now that's a lot of damage!
In the north, the Confederates are on the doorstep of Frederick, putting the pressure on me. I use my own infantry to try and retake Hagerstown, but it doesn't seem like I have the resources to do so without devoting more forces away from the defense. So I give up on the idea of retaking that city. The Confederates continue their attack on Frederick, bombarding it with their rifled cannons. You know, I'm starting to think that these frigates were a waste of iron. I continue my attack on Richmond, focusing on trying to kill the units guarding the city, of which there are many. The Confederates are starting to field more infantry corps and rifled cannons, which is making things a bit trickier. But with my own gold, I get a couple more infantry corps, including upgrading one in Frederick to help bolster the garrison there. Yet tragedy strikes soon after, when the Confederates kill one of my infantry corps. The enemy begin to besiege Culpeper, which I'm only defending with 2 units. But I'm not overly concerned about them retaking the city, to be honest. I have more important fronts to worry about, like Frederick, which is much more important to hold. I finish researching a technology which unlocks an upgraded version of the cavalry, which doubles their combat strength. I immediately start upgrading much of my existing cavalry. The attack on Richmond continues as I bombard the city with my cannons and upgrade another corps to replace the one I just lost. But on the Confederate turn, they finally retake Culpeper and then decide to sink my 3rd and final frigate. Fortunately, my upgraded cavalry prove their use as one withstands 2 attacks, something that would surely have killed it if it weren't upgraded. I'm noticing all these events are pro-Confederate. I guess I can't count on events to help me out, but no matter. Richmond is on YOLO health. It's just a matter of time until I can take it and claim my achievement. Whoop. I decimate some more troops near Richmond, yet the city remains standing still. Its defenses are just so high that reducing its health takes forever, especially when my cannons keep getting distracted by enemy units. Up in the north, thanks to my newly upgraded cavalry, I've been able to drive away the enemy attack on Frederick, and it seems unlikely to fall now. I bombard Richmond further and get it down to red health. So close now. Oh, hey, I did get to use that plus 50% strength when defending in Marsh promotion. I guess it is helpful after all. People who like shiny things, eh? Well, I guess it makes sense that the Confederates have so much gold with all their blockade runners and pro-Confederate events. And there it is. On turn 25, a mere halfway through my turn limit, I finally whittle down the defenses of Richmond enough to take the city and earn my achievement. Wow, that was really anticlimactic. I thought the scenario would be harder, but honestly that was piss easy, and although I had achieved my goal of beating the scenario on Deity, I wasn't satisfied. I won as the Union, but there was still the Confederacy. maybe they would offer a more interesting challenge. So I decided to play this scenario on Deity again, this time as the Confederates under the leadership of Jefferson Davis. Now, the Confederates have an ability which seems more useful than the Union one, which grants their units a 10% combat bonus, so that seems promising. We also get a unique unit, the Blockade Runner. This ship is pretty weak, but if you move it to one of the rightmost sea tiles, it disappears and you get a bunch of gold. So gold shouldn't be an issue. Not that I really used it much in the last game, but anyway. Now, the smart course of action would be to take Frederick and from there march southeast to attack Washington from the north, since there's this big bit of water between my current position and the capital. But I want to do something a bit different. I want to march across that bridge and take the city from the south without flanking around. Why? I don't know, it just seems like fun. To get this plan to work, I'm going to need to bombard the city with enough firepower to make Alfred Nobel weep. So, learning from my previous game, I decided to research rifled artillery first so I can get the best cannons available in the scenario. I also changed production in any cities that start out producing cannons so I can save my iron for their improved designs. And with that setup out of the way, it's time to begin. Now, my first goal will be to defend the city of Fairfax, which, if you'll remember, fell on turn 2 in my Union game, so this won't be too easy. I also have an army starting in Winchester, aided by my great general Joe Johnston, which I send east towards Harper's Ferry because I want to take the iron there to allow for more artillery. I immediately have a large force of Union soldiers to deal with as they approach Fairfax with infantry divisions and cannons, who are supported by the Union's own great general stationed in Alexandria. Thanks to the garrison in the city, Fairfax withstands the first turn of Union attacks, yet their cannons have already reduced the city to below half health, and yet more reinforcements pour in. But I'm able to finish off the weakened infantry adjacent to the city and position my own forces to block any Malay attackers from hitting the city this turn. Elsewhere, Leesburg comes under attack from a few infantry divisions, and these very tactically inept cavalry. I send my first blockade runner to earn me gold and use the earnings to purchase another infantry division to reinforce the western front and hopefully let me hold on to my newly captured city of Harper's Ferry. Yet this turn there's little I can do to repel the invaders at the gate of Leesburg, and I'm forced to sit back and pray they fail to take the city this turn. Meanwhile, in Fairfax, I fortify my troops, keeping on the defensive so the city doesn't fall. My plan works and neither city falls, yet 2 cannons are now in range of Leesburg and will almost certainly reduce the city to ruin next turn if they're allowed to fire. Seeing no way to prevent the city's capture, I choose to evacuate the cavalry garrison there so it won't be lost next turn. Predictably, Leesburg falls, and the remaining attackers there fell the first of my fierce fighters. Union cannon fire decimates the defences of Fairfax, keeping its health dangerously low, whilst more infantry flood in and launch attacks on my defending divisions. Yet reinforcements of my own soon join the fray, hopefully allowing me to start pushing back these fiends. The Union doesn't relent, however, as they reduce Fairfax health to the minimum, and an infantry division moves adjacent to the city, poised to take it next turn if I don't kill them. They also bombard one of my troops with a frigate, almost as though mocking me for my ineffectual use of them in my previous game. And soon thereafter, the first pop-up event fires. This one pro-Union, of course, because I can't have nice things. My courageous Confederates fight back, killing enemy combatants and then withstanding multiple attacks as the next Union turn rolls around, and soon enough I'm able to retake Leesburg. The city of Fairfax is closer to falling now than it has been up to this point. With no health and 2 enemy infantry divisions adjacent to the city, I need to think carefully if I want to avoid the city falling under Union occupation. Fortunately, through making good use of my cannons, infantry and cavalry, I'm able to defeat these dastardly devils and place units surrounding my city to keep it safe for another turn. In more good news, my research on rifled artillery has been completed, I switched to producing rifled cannons in the cities of Petersburg and Richmond, as well as purchasing one in each of those cities, as well as a third in Harper's Ferry, using the gold I've saved up until this point. The next turn, I mostly focus on healing my units, as well as finally being able to send my great general to my main army in Fairfax. And with the enemy in retreat, I opt to move my forces towards the nearby city of Alexandria, which I will need to control before I can attempt to capture Washington. However, it seems they've started deploying infantry corps, which means their forces are only going to get stronger. Some Union frigates arrive at the city of Tappahannock and begin bombarding it, but my care factor for this city is 0. Besides, since frigates are range units, they cannot capture the city, and since I highly doubt any Malay units would find its way there, I elect to ignore these frigates and leave them be. Soon enough, yet another event fires, this one reducing my manpower pool by 5, which is really unfortunate timing as I just finished the research for infantry corps. I still have enough to upgrade 3 of my infantry divisions into corps, so I choose a few with desirable promotions to upgrade. And then with my large army, I push in towards Alexandria and decimate the defenders there. And with plenty of artillery now arriving, I'm able to do severe damage to the enemy units from afar. Did I seriously just get a message right as I was recording? As I'm prompted to choose production in one of my cities, I discover that the Union have amassed a decent force near the city of Harper's Ferry, and I don't really have many units close enough to defend the city. So on the enemy's next turn, they reduce the city to half health and move their units in closer to the city. With 2 cannons in range and multiple infantry, I know I can't prevent them from taking the city. But despite this renewed threat to the west, I choose to keep my focus on Alexandria. I sit back and watch as the Union attack Harper's Ferry, waiting for it to fall into their grasp. But miraculously, they fail to do enough damage to take the city this turn, and it just barely hangs on with a sliver of health, as does this brave infantry division surrounded by enemies. But I know Harper's Ferry will fall, and with it I'll lose the 2 iron resources there, so I forego building more rifled cannons and instead produce more infantry in Petersburg, as well as upgrading the city defences in my capital, not that I really think I'll need it. I continue my offensive on Alexandria, and at this point I realise standing on this bridge gives a massive combat strength penalty to attacking and defending, which could be a problem if I plan to take Washington from that very bridge. But Alexandria falls without too much more hassle, and now that I control this point, I'm able to position my troops near the bridge, forcing any Union land units that want to attack south to either cross the bridge or embark into the water, either way leaving themselves extremely vulnerable. At this point, I plan to divert some of my forces, including my basic cannons, to the west, where Harper's Ferry has finally fallen. But my rifled cannons will remain across the water from Washington, where I plan to line them all up so I can begin bombarding the city. Oh, those frigates are still attacking Tappahannock, by the way. But as I predicted, they can't actually do anything to capture it, so it's not a big deal. The Union makes a massive tactical blunder by leaving their great general exposed on the bridge, leaving him open to be attacked by my artillery. But then I make an even bigger tactical blunder by fumbling the chance to kill him and instead focus on these embarked infantry divisions for some reason. Really bad move on my part. That aside, my plan is working quite well as the Union is sending their soldiers on suicide missions in a futile attempt to uproot my defensive line. But they just really can't do anything to touch this setup with Malay units. In fact, I feel like the Union's ability to embark is kind of a hindrance to them, as it just leads to them leaving their troops vulnerable to taking massive damage from my cannons quite frequently throughout this scenario. Or alternatively, they try and attack me from an embarked position, which just causes them to take extreme losses. But the Union isn't going to go out quietly. Their attack in the west accelerates as they send multiple infantry corps towards Martinsburg, and additionally in Washington they've now constructed a Monitor, which is a naval unit that's stronger than the frigate. When I go to move one of my units, I discover 2 Union frigates sitting just beside Fredericksburg, although weirdly they don't actually end up attacking the city, they just kind of sit there. In fact, upon reviewing the footage, I found out they'd already been sitting there a few turns by the time I noticed them. I'm not really sure what that's all about, but whatever. I end up sinking the Union monitor, but it takes 5 attacks from my rifled cannons, which is quite a lot, especially considering they don't actually do much damage to the city of Washington due to its high city strength. Soon enough, I've unlocked Carbine Cavalry and can begin to upgrade my existing cavalry into the stronger version. My attack on Washington also goes well, and with all of my bombardments, I bring the city to yellow health. Martinsburg soon falls as the Union forces in the area are just too strong and numerous. They just have so many infantry corps, and all of my own corps are occupied at the Washington front. Oh great, I just lost half my treasury. Fun times. According to this, my army is significantly weaker than Lincoln's army. Sounds like Union propaganda to me. The fighting continues, with the Western Front devolving into a bit of a mess, with units all over the place clashing with each other. The defenses of Martinsburg are too strong for me to retake, especially with their massive army constantly damaging and killing my units near the city. Oh wow, what's this? An event that benefits me, the player? That's unheard of. At the Washington front, many of my rifled cannons are starting to earn the regular promotions from the normal game, which is quite impressive given they increase the XP requirement for those promotions by quite a lot in this scenario. Also, at this point, I think it's worth mentioning that by this point in the Union game, I had captured Richmond and won, so this Confederate game is taking a bit longer. Although looking at Washington's current situation, I don't expect the game to take too much longer. At this point, there's honestly not much for me to comment on though. The Western Front is honestly not changing much, as we're kind of at a standstill there, and whilst I am winning in the Washington Front, my progress is slow because I do so little damage each turn. Yet I do reduce the capital city to red health, which is good. But Washington has been producing more monitors, and by turn 30 they have 3 of them, plus a frigate, all attacking my units each turn. Devoting time to attack them with my cannons would only make the capture of Washington take longer, so I've been ignoring them up until this point, and I continue to ignore them, focusing on bombarding the capital. This decision pays off as not long later, on turn 32, I finally whittle down Washington's defenses enough to capture the city and claim a Confederate victory over the Union. So, that was the American Civil War scenario completed on Deity as both Union and the Confederates. If you're interested in seeing the full gameplays, I'll be posting them on my second channel, and I'll put links to those videos in the description of this video as well. Each game only took a bit over an hour, and I didn't really find the gameplay to be that difficult really. It didn't feel like Deity, but to be fair, the scenario does make things a lot easier by disabling certain game mechanics that can make things more challenging. And not all the scenarios are created equally, so for those of you who want to see pain and suffering, I can assure you some of the future scenarios will be much harder. In fact, the next one I plan to play is one I know for a fact will be a big step up in difficulty. But you'll have to wait a bit before that video comes out. But yeah, I do plan on playing more of the scenarios, specifically aiming to get those Deity achievements so I can 100% the game. So if you're interested in seeing more videos like this, then please consider subscribing. But anyway, I would recommend playing this scenario yourself if you've got Civ 5 Brave New World and haven't checked it out before. Whilst it's a bit easy, it was definitely a fun scenario with some cool and unique mechanics. I think my game as the Confederates was probably a little more challenging, as the Union army basically spawns right next to you, so you're thrust into combat much earlier. Like at the start of my Union game, I encountered very few enemies, so I got a few turns in before really being thrust into large battles and such. But I enjoyed my time playing the scenario quite a lot. Well, that's it for this video. If anyone is still watching up to this point, then wow, thank you for sticking around to the end. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye. Those Union frigates are still attacking Tappahannock.